In today's Warcrow topic, we are going to be talking about the Anointed, who are part of the Scions of Yaldabaoth faction in Warcrow. So like many humans in the Scions, they want to please the progenitor and ascend through the ranks. However, unlike the Intact, which we talked about in another video, the Anointed are those humans who have ascended per se or achieved transformation with the greatest care of their progenitor's flesh crafting skills. So the Anointed are functionally what the Intact and many humans in the Scions aspire to be. It is one of the highest honors a human can achieve within the Scions. Really, the only other honor that is higher than becoming an Anointed is becoming a Morn Mob. And to be honest, I love the Morn Mob. We'll talk all about our wonderful Morn Mob in another video. But I'm looking at the Morn Mob, and I'm just curious. There's a lot of faces on that guy, so I don't know how much sentience and autonomy a single human has, or if it's more like a bunch of people, too many cooks in the kitchen. Anyway, that's me talking about the Morn Mob, and I like to get distracted. Going back to the Anointed are made with large amounts of orichalcum, which is grafted into their bodies. We talked a lot about the orichalcum and kind of what it is. We talked about Mount Haven and the folders, so you can check out that playlist and video. But the large amount of orichalcum is paired with other body modifications by the progenitor. So when we see an Anointed pull up to a battlefield, typically they are going to have natural armor and weapons that are made of bone, sinew, and muscle. They have weapons fused to their bodies. They have potentially echolocation, underwater breathing. They don't necessarily need to sleep, which means I would also assume they don't get as exhausted as easily. They also have heightened sense of smell. So these guys are just like built to brawl. And progenitors spend their most precious resource of all to make the Anointed, which is their time, because the progenitors are always trying to perfect their craft and focus on their works of arts. Think of them like, very romantic painters, always wanting to make their masterpiece. You can think of that as the progenitors like that when they are making their Anointed. And this is definitely going to be our progenitors who are, any progenitor can make it, but I'm also of the mindset to think that the progenitors of the living flesh are going to be the ones who are really, really into making the Anointed. And it makes sense that progenitors spend their time to make these Anointed, because the Anointed often act as the personal guards of their progenitor. And they will happily, but I would assume happily, give their lives without a doubt to save their progenitor should the need arise. But ultimately, the Anointed are walking tanks created by their progenitor's genius. And so why are the Anointed cool? Well, one, I think I've mentioned it before in other videos. I'm always a big fan of just big, muscly dudes in wargaming. I just love it. I just think it's fun in this world with spells and sneaky people and all this stuff. You have these guys that are just here to wreck house. And, you pair that with their just really, really cool bone armor. I think that's fantastic, and I really love some of the swords they have. I just think it's super, super cool. I think if somebody's really good at cosplaying, you can do some really cool stuff with that. And I'm hopeful that eventually we start to see Warcrow weapons as STLs, because I have some cool ideas for printing some props, Anointed weapon props. I also find it fascinating that once again, like within the Scions, we see how faith, devotion, and zeal for a human can bring rewards in the faction of the Scions, because those that are faithful and devout and ultimately get the progenitor's attention and care can achieve this quote-unquote ascension into a more powerful being, an entity, and body, really. And with that, this lore video about the Anointed comes to an end. Don't forget to follow this channel to get more Warcrow lore, and if you survive the fog, I'll see you in the next video.